My beloved child. Stop scrolling for just a moment. Do not dismiss this as another ordinary message passing before your eyes. There are moments in life when a soul is guided to hear exactly what it needs, exactly when it needs it. If these words have reached you today, let your heart become still. Breathe deeply. Something has been stirring around your life that you have sensed but could not explain. This is a fictional spiritual story created to inspire reflection, hope, and courage. But allow yourself to imagine, just for these moments, that heaven itself has chosen to speak to your weary heart. You have asked questions in the silence that no one else has heard. You have smiled while carrying burdens that few people could ever understand. You have stood in crowded places and still felt completely alone. And there have been nights when you whispered into the darkness, God, if you are with me, give me a sign. Perhaps this story becomes that sign. Not because it predicts your future, but because it reminds you that even in your deepest uncertainty, you are never beyond hope. Listen carefully, my child. There is a reason your spirit has been unusually alert. There is a reason certain conversations have made your heart uneasy. There is a reason you have felt an invisible tension that words cannot fully describe. Your life is precious. Far more precious than you have believed. You often measure your value by what others say, by what they notice, by what they ignore, by what they celebrate and by what they criticize. But heaven has never measured you that way. Before another person ever spoke your name, before your first breath filled your lungs, before your first tear touched your face, I knew every possibility that would one day unfold before you. I also knew every storm. Every disappointment. Every betrayal. Every unexpected turn. Nothing has surprised me. Not even this moment. Especially this moment. There are seasons when danger arrives with loud footsteps. But there are other seasons when danger whispers. It hides behind comfort. It wears the face of familiarity. It smiles before it deceives. It waits patiently until someone lowers their guard. This story is not about living in fear. It is about awakening wisdom. Because fear paralyzes. Wisdom protects. And today, wisdom is calling your name. Think back over the past several weeks. Have you noticed how small interruptions have become strangely frequent? Plans suddenly changing. Unexpected delays. People canceling at the last minute. Doors closing without explanation. Moments that frustrated you. Moments that made you wonder why nothing seemed to happen according to your expectations. You called them inconveniences. But what if they were interruptions with a purpose? What if the delay you complained about quietly redirected you from something your eyes could not see? Many people become angry when life refuses to follow their schedule. Yet they never realize that unseen protection often disguises itself as disappointment. Imagine someone walking toward a bridge they believe is perfectly safe. From where they stand, everything appears normal. The sky is clear. The path is smooth. Nothing looks dangerous. Yet someone standing high above can already see the bridge beginning to crack. Would love remain silent? Or would love call out? Would love whisper, please stop? That is what this story is about. Not punishment. Not condemnation. Protection. You have prayed for blessings. But have you also thanked heaven for the blessings hidden inside unanswered prayers? Many victories never look like victories when they first arrive. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not receiving something. Sometimes the miracle is being prevented from receiving the wrong thing. My child. You often ask why people walked away from you. Why relationships dissolved. Why friendships suddenly became distant. Why opportunities disappeared after coming so close. You believed you were losing. But what if you were actually being separated? Not every departure is rejection. Sometimes separation is preparation. Sometimes protection looks exactly like heartbreak. The human heart struggles to understand this while it is hurting. Only later does wisdom reveal what emotion could never explain. You have been standing in front of closed doors, knocking harder and harder. Meanwhile, another path has quietly been prepared behind you. You kept staring at what disappeared. Heaven kept preparing what would remain. Lift your eyes. There is more happening than you realize. There are battles you never witnessed because they never reached you. There are dangers that dissolved before they could ever touch your life. There are moments you called coincidence that were, in this fictional tale, portrayed as quiet acts of divine mercy. One afternoon, according to this story, an angel stood where human eyes could not see. No thunder announced the moment. No trumpet sounded across the sky. Cars continued driving. Birds continued singing. People continued scrolling on their phones. Everything looked ordinary. Yet eternity paused for one heartbeat. Because a single decision made by one ordinary person would ripple into countless lives. That person had no idea they were being protected. They only felt strangely uncomfortable. They suddenly changed direction. They suddenly decided not to go. They suddenly forgot something and returned home. Hours later they learned what had happened where they almost went. They called themselves lucky. Heaven called it love. Perhaps you have experienced moments like that. Perhaps not. But every life contains mysteries never fully explained. The greatest stories are often the ones no one notices. You believe miracles must always appear dramatically. Sometimes miracles wear ordinary clothes. Sometimes miracles arrive 5 minutes late. Sometimes miracles sound like the word no. Sometimes miracles appear as exhaustion that causes someone to stay home. Sometimes miracles hide inside missed phone calls. Sometimes miracles arrive disguised as inconvenience. How many invisible rescues have already shaped your journey? No one truly knows. Not until eternity reveals the entire picture. There is another reason this story has found you. Because danger does not always come from outside. Sometimes the greatest threat grows quietly within. Not illness. Not disaster. But despair. Slowly believing you no longer matter. Slowly accepting lies spoken over your life. Slowly convincing yourself that your future has already been decided by your past. That is one of the oldest traps darkness has ever used. It whispers. You are finished. You have missed your chance. Nothing good is coming. You will always remain this way. The tragedy is not that such lies exist. The tragedy is how often wounded hearts begin believing them. Tell me. How many dreams have you buried because someone laughed? How many gifts have remained hidden because someone doubted you? How many prayers have stopped halfway because disappointment became louder than hope? You were never meant to live imprisoned by invisible chains. Look carefully at your own thoughts. What voice has been speaking the loudest lately? Is it the voice of hope? Or the voice of fear? The voice of courage? Or the voice of surrender? Every day your heart chooses which voice becomes stronger. That choice quietly shapes your future. Imagine standing inside a vast forest before sunrise. Everything seems uncertain. Every shadow appears larger than it truly is. Every sound seems threatening. But when dawn finally rises, nothing changed except the light. The trees remained. The path remained. The mountains remained. Only darkness disappeared. Light revealed reality. That is what truth does. Truth does not invent safety. Truth reveals it. This fictional message asks you to imagine that heaven is gently inviting you toward that light. Not because your journey will become effortless, but because clarity transforms courage. There is someone connected to your story. Not necessarily an enemy. Not necessarily a friend. Simply someone whose own confusion has begun influencing the atmosphere around your life. Their words carry more weight than they realize. Their choices affect more people than they understand. They themselves are wounded. People often imagine danger arrives through obviously evil people. Yet some of the deepest wounds come from broken people who never intended the damage they caused. Pain often travels from heart to heart until someone chooses healing. Do not answer hurt with hatred. Do not answer betrayal with bitterness. Bitterness builds prisons for the one carrying it. Forgiveness unlocks doors. Forgiveness does not excuse wrong. It simply refuses to let darkness occupy your heart rent-free. There is freedom waiting for the soul willing to release what it cannot control. Listen closely now. Because the atmosphere of this story is changing. Imagine that night has fallen. Clouds cover the moon. The world becomes unusually quiet. A single lamp burns inside a small house where someone kneels beside their bed. No audience watches. No applause follows. Only silent tears. They whisper. I cannot carry this anymore. Nothing extraordinary seems to happen. No walls shake. No brilliant light fills the room. Yet in heaven, according to this fictional narrative, something begins moving. Not because the prayer was perfect. Not because the words were impressive. But because sincerity reached farther than eloquence ever could. Never underestimate honest prayer. Even the smallest whisper born from genuine hope possesses extraordinary beauty. Many believe heaven only hears polished words. Love has never required perfection to listen. My child. You have been stronger than you realize. You survived seasons that should have broken you. You continued walking after disappointments that convinced others to quit. You carried responsibilities while secretly wondering whether you had any strength remaining. Still you kept going. Not because you always felt brave. But because something deep within refused to completely surrender. That quiet persistence matters. More than you know. The enemy of hope often waits until exhaustion arrives. Because tired hearts accept lies more easily. That is why rest is sacred. That is why peace matters. That is why wisdom sometimes says, pause. Not because the journey is ending. But because strength must be renewed before the next mountain appears. Do not mistake slowing down for failure. Even rivers become calm before waterfalls. Even sunrise begins with darkness. Even seeds disappear underground before becoming forests. The story of your life is not being written only by what others can see. Much of the greatest transformation always happens beneath the surface. And yet, there is something else. Something that has not yet been revealed. Something connected to a choice that will soon stand before the central character of this story. It will not appear dangerous. It will look ordinary. Reasonable. Even attractive. Almost everyone around them will think it is harmless. Some will encourage it. Others will celebrate it. Only a quiet whisper inside will hesitate. That whisper will seem almost impossible to explain. Logic will argue against it. Pressure will argue against it. Popularity will argue against it. But peace. Peace will quietly refuse to agree. The question will not be whether the opportunity looks good. The question will be whether it truly belongs to them. Many destinies are changed not by dramatic disasters, but by subtle decisions made without listening to inner wisdom. This is where the story begins to deepen. Because what appears to be an ordinary invitation carries consequences no one yet understands. Even the angels in this fictional narrative seem to pause in expectation. The unseen world watches. Not with fear. With hope. For one choice. One moment. One act of courage. One willingness to trust quiet wisdom over loud pressure. And just as that moment is about to arrive, just as the hidden truth begins to reveal itself. Just as the reason behind every strange delay, every closed door, every restless feeling, and every unanswered question is finally about to become clear. The story must pause. Because what happens next changes everything. My beloved child. The silence that followed felt heavier than any storm. Not because the world had changed in a single heartbeat, but because something inside the traveler had begun to awaken. Until that moment, every strange delay, every closed door, every unanswered question had seemed like scattered pieces of a puzzle with no picture to guide them. Yet now, as dawn stretched its first light across the horizon, those fragments no longer appeared random. They hinted at a design too vast to understand all at once. The traveler stepped outside into the cool morning air. The wind carried no voices, no miracles visible to the eye, only the ordinary sounds of birds greeting the day. But the ordinary itself felt different. It was as though every breath invited a new question. What if the greatest danger is not always something chasing us, but something we fail to notice within ourselves? That thought lingered. Throughout the day, small moments unfolded that would once have gone unnoticed. A hurried stranger offered a smile. An elderly neighbor quietly carried groceries despite obvious exhaustion. A child laughed without worrying about tomorrow. These ordinary scenes revealed something extraordinary. Life is fragile, precious, and easily overlooked when fear becomes the loudest voice. The traveler realized that fear had been shaping many decisions, not with dramatic warnings, but with quiet assumptions. What if I fail? What if I am not enough? What if tomorrow is worse than today? Each question became a chain, invisible yet heavy. Then, in the stillness of imagination, a radiant messenger appeared, not to predict disaster, but to tell a story. The messenger pointed toward two roads stretching into the distance. The first road was crowded. Everyone hurried along it, following one another without asking where it truly led. It looked exciting, familiar, and easy to follow. The second road was quieter. It required patience. There were fewer footprints, but the air felt peaceful. The traveler hesitated. Which path is safer? The traveler asked. The messenger smiled gently. The safer path is not always the easier one. Wisdom often walks where noise refuses to go. The words echoed long after the vision faded. Later that evening, the traveler remembered countless moments when rushing had created mistakes, while patience had quietly prevented them. A missed train had led to meeting a lifelong friend. A rejected opportunity had made room for something far better. A painful ending had become the beginning of unexpected healing. What once looked like loss now resembled hidden protection. Still, another mystery remained. Why had this realization come now? As darkness settled, the traveler found an old lantern resting on a dusty shelf. Its glass was clouded with years of neglect. After carefully cleaning it, the flame inside suddenly shone brighter than expected. The messenger's voice returned, not as a command, but as a gentle reminder. Light was always there. It only needed the dust removed. The traveler understood. Sometimes hearts become like that lantern. Disappointment gathers. Resentment settles. Exhaustion clouds vision. The light has not disappeared, it simply struggles to shine through what has accumulated over time. That night, instead of asking for every answer, the traveler whispered a different prayer. Give me wisdom to notice what truly matters. No thunder answered. No heavens opened dramatically. Only a deep sense of peace settled over the room. And somehow, that peace felt stronger than certainty itself. For the first time in many seasons, the traveler no longer wanted to control every tomorrow. Instead, there was a quiet confidence that each step taken with honesty, compassion, and wisdom would lead where it needed to. Outside, the stars continued their silent journey across the sky. The world remained imperfect. Challenges still waited. But the traveler had changed. And sometimes, that is where every miracle truly begins. My beloved child. The first light of morning spilled across the hills like liquid gold, and the traveler awoke with a peace that had been absent for many seasons. The questions had not all been answered. The future was still unwritten. Yet something deeper than certainty had taken root, a quiet trust that every step taken with wisdom mattered. The traveler remembered the messenger's final words from the night before. Light was never your problem. Forgetting to look for it was. Those words echoed throughout the day. As the traveler walked through a bustling marketplace, everything appeared ordinary. Merchants called to passing customers. Children chased one another through narrow streets. Laughter mixed with the sounds of wagons and distant bells. Then something unexpected happened. A small child stumbled in front of a moving cart. Before anyone else reacted, the traveler rushed forward, gently pulling the child to safety. The cart rolled past. The danger lasted only a heartbeat. The grateful parents embraced their child with tears in their eyes. No crowd celebrated the traveler. No one knew how close tragedy had come. Life simply continued. But as the traveler walked away, the messenger's voice returned. Today you believed you were protecting someone else. You did not realize your own heart was being transformed. The traveler stopped. It became clear that courage grows through ordinary acts of kindness, not only through extraordinary moments. Every compassionate decision changes the one who makes it. Every act of mercy strengthens the soul. Every choice to forgive weakens the chains of bitterness. That evening, the traveler climbed a quiet hill overlooking the valley. The sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, painting the sky with crimson and gold. The messenger appeared once more, not surrounded by thunder or dazzling light, but with a calm presence that brought peace. You feared that your life was surrounded by danger, the messenger said. And it is true that every life faces uncertainty. But uncertainty is not meant to imprison you. It is meant to remind you that each day is a gift. The traveler listened carefully. The greatest danger was never only what might happen around you, the messenger continued. The greatest danger was allowing fear to convince you that hope was no longer worth holding. Those words settled deeply within the traveler's heart. For years, fear had quietly stolen joy before problems even arrived. It had imagined disasters that never happened. It had delayed dreams because success seemed uncertain. It had built invisible walls where no real prison existed. Now those walls began to crumble. The traveler looked toward the stars. So what should I do now? The messenger smiled. Live with wisdom. Protect your peace. Speak truth with kindness. Love generously. Rest when you are weary. Ask for help when you need it. And never forget that every sunrise is another invitation to begin again. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. The messenger slowly faded into the evening light. But this time, the traveler did not feel abandoned. Because the greatest lesson had already been given. The traveler descended the hill with renewed purpose. The roads ahead would still contain challenges. Some dreams would require patience. Some prayers would seem unanswered for a season. Some tears would still fall. But fear would no longer be the guide. Hope would. And from that day forward, whenever uncertainty appeared, the traveler remembered a simple truth. Life is precious not because it is free from danger, but because every new day offers another opportunity to choose love over fear, wisdom over panic, compassion over resentment, and faith over despair. As the stars filled the night sky, the traveler smiled, not because every mystery had been solved, but because the journey itself had become a gift. And somewhere beyond what human eyes could see, heaven rejoiced whenever one more heart chose courage instead of fear.